we're going to have a problem. So we're going to calculate the sum of the first 20 terms of the series 60 plus 57 plus 54. Remember that these series came from a sequence, right? It was originally a sequence of 60, 57, 54, yada, 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 up to the u sub n, or u sub 20, because we know it's the first 20 terms. So we can notice here that it is an arithmetic sequence because there's a common difference every single time. We are subtracting 3 every single time, which means that our common difference is -3. When we're adding, it's going to be positive. When we're subtracting, it's going to be negative. This is our plan part of our stage. Remember that in our last notes, we talked about like, hey, what happens if we separate out every single problem that we do as like, first we plan, prepare, get everything ready, and then we solve, and then afterwards we can say, hey, does that make sense? And then we can move on. So our plan stage is like, okay, it's arithmetic, which I know needs to have a common difference, so cool, I can have a common difference. I see the sum. The sum of arithmetic sequence, I have a formula for that. And so it's going to be the formula that we just found. S sub n equals n over 2 times u sub 1 plus u sub n. We know that our n is 20. We're talking about 20 terms here. So our n is 20. Looking at the formula that's going to give us the sum, we have a common difference. We have our first term here. It's like a recipe, right? Your recipe calls for u sub 1. What is u sub 1? Oh, well, it's 60. We have n. The thing is we don't have u sub n. And this is where we say, oh, okay, so I need to find that. I probably should find that first. And then once I have that, I can do this guy. I can find the sum. In order to find the 20th term in specifically, the last term is the 20th term, we need to find out what is the formula, right? We need to use the formula to figure out how do we know what the 20th term is. I don't want to subtract 3 18 more times. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, okay, well, u sub n equals u sub 1 plus n minus 1 times d. I'm going to use the formula that I have in order to find the 20th term. Okay, so that shifts my plan a little bit. First, I need to find this formula, and then in order to find the 20th term, okay, and then I can find what the sum is. Starting off with a formula that you have been indicated by in the word problem is a great first step because you're working from the bottom up. You're like, well, if I need to be here, I know I need to do the sum formula before I can get to the actual sum. Well, in order to get to the sum formula, I need all of these ingredients for my recipe. I've got that one, I've got that one. Ooh, I don't have that one. Okay, well, I need to find that one. Okay, so then you're working from that way. It's like working backwards in a maze when you have a little paper maze in front of you. You're working backwards here. So now we have a plan of action. First, I need to find this guy. Then I need to find this guy. And then our third and final step is to actually calculate the sum. There's a lot of things we have to do with problems like these, and this is where I strongly recommend we start practicing the art of problem solving. So now we're going to solve. We've got a plan of action, we can follow through. U sub n. U sub 20 is equal to u sub 1, which is 60, plus n minus 1, which is 20 minus 1, times our common difference, which is -3. Right? I want to find the 20th term, so I'm going to use this function in order to solve for the 20th term. 60 minus 19 times 3 is... Why don't you guys find this out? I don't know why I'm trying to calculate it. Why don't you guys find it on your own? Okay, our 20th term is 3. 19 times -3 becomes -57. 60 minus 57 is 3. Cool. This is the part of the problem where I hear a lot of math students say, wait, what was I supposed to do again? Okay, I found that. Is that my final answer? What's next? What am I supposed to do? This is where your plan stage saves you so much time and heartache. You found u sub 20. Okay, cool. What was my next plan of action? My next plan of action was to find the sum. Okay, so now I need to do s sub 20 equals 20n, 20 over 2, times our first term plus our last term. Go ahead and solve for that. 6 plus 3, 63, times 10 is 630. The sum of the first 20 terms of that series is 630. Does that make sense? It definitely should be larger than 170, right? This right here is about 170. So we know we should definitely be larger than 170. We know that these numbers are getting smaller, so our rate of jumping, right? We're not going to be adding 60 again. We're not going to be adding 57. The next one we're going to add is 51. So just the sum that we add is going to be less and less every single time. So we know we're going to be greater than 170, probably greater than 200, but we're definitely not going to make it all the way to 1,000. So we're going to be somewhere within that. And that's the number that we got. And so, yeah, it makes sense. All right, let's try this again. The sum of the arithmetic series. We're going to find the sum of the arithmetic series. Okay, so we need to find the sum. Well, I have a formula for that. Plan. My sum formula is. So then what of that do I have? Well, I have u sub 1. U sub 1 is negative 10. Ooh, and this time I do have u sub n. U sub n is 90. Awesome. Do we have n? Do we know how many terms this guy is? We don't know what n is. That is something that we need to solve for. Well, normally when we solve for n, like we did in previous problems, where else have we solved for n? Like we have in previous problems, solving for n means that we put our final term into a formula and then solve for n, which means we need the formula that describes this sequence. So we need u sub n equals u sub 1 plus n minus 1 times d. Okay, so then looking at this new formula that we've created, do I have all the ingredients for my recipe? U sub 1, yes. N, no, but we're solving for that. D, okay, I can solve for D. I do have D. So let's look. What is the common difference for this series? It goes from negative 10 to negative 6 to negative 2, which means we're adding 4 every single time. The next term would be positive 2, and then it'd be positive 6, and then it'd be positive 10. So common difference is positive 4. U sub n we also already have. So now we have all the information we need in order to solve for n. So we're first going to use this formula to solve for n, and then once we have n, we'll solve for the sum. Plan set. Let's solve. Go ahead and solve for n on your own. N is 26. You would add 10 to both sides and then divide by 4 and then add 1 and you get 26, or you can just use your numerical solve. Once we have our n, we can then move on to our final step, which is to solve for the sum. So s sub 26, because this is our 26th term, equals 26 over 2 times u sub 1 is negative 10 plus u sub n is 90. That's going to be 13 times 80, which is 1,040.